Welcome to Two Bitches and a Broom podcast with your host, Charli and Krys. Great. Welcome to Two Bitches and a Broom podcast for episode, what are we on? Four.
Four?
Yes, five. Four.
I don't know.
One of them.
Whoa.
4 or 5. 4 or 5 something. This week's topic, we're going to be discussing awakening. So I'm awake. Now what? What do I do?
And that's more
Yeah.
common than you think. A lot of people, I think, are experiencing that,
Oh, yeah.
I guess we can call it 2019 so I don't have to blurb it out. But 2019 was a big one. Lots of folks. Lots of folks wide awake.
You know what was the most interesting thing of that year was observing all of the shadows that were emerging for people.
Oh, yeah.
And even just going to out in public anywhere, and I just would sit back and just observe the energy of people, and oh my Lanta, the shadows that were just purging from people.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah. I did that lecture before everything happened, and I was talking about it going to happen, and I had said there's going to be far less people. They're going to stop saying it's way too people-y out there, and they're going to be looking through their windows hoping they see a person. And I think that was a big significant shift, because you don't hear that as much anymore. Yeah, that was a big shift.
Yeah. And we've noticed that from that time frame up until now, current year, time and space, it's just continuing to amplify with individuals more and more and more. And with those gifted souls, sensitive souls, experiences are happening more and more for each of them.
Absolutely.
And for a lot of people, it's really like kind of blowing the lid off of their lives.
Absolutely.
Because they've lived one way for so long, and in one belief system, one belief structure. And now the awakening has happened and you're questioning everything.
Yeah.
You're looking at everybody sideways, and you're just in this state of, and I feel like it can really bring up, uncertainty, most definitely fear.
Yeah, I agree.
And that insecurity, because you're in this kind of what would you call it, like a limbo state. You really don't know what the awakening truly looks like, but you're shedding everything from before, and that's tough. That's tough for a lot of people.
Absolutely. And I think that it was a time for a lot of people, you hear a lot of practitioners talk about speaking your truth. I think that was a time where people were starting to experience their lives in the most truthful fashion. You couldn't escape your children.
Right.
You're like, oh, wow, my kids are assholes. Who can I blame for this?
Right.
I mean, that was like a big thing for a lot of parents. They were like, holy crap, I never realized that my kids behave this way. I heard that for so many people or spouses. There was a lot of relationships that ended because of that, being in the same space, and then for a prolonged period of time, and they're like, ooh, you know what? I really don't like you,
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
I think that it was also a time where people were learning about what their truth is as far as the spiritual practice. You know, there was a lot of people that did a hell of a lot of reading, just to discover what they did believe, or maybe having a deeper understanding of their current belief, or abandoning it altogether.
Yeah. I noticed that too. I I noticed a lot of relationships, careers, big one in careers, people walking away,
Oh,
like
sure.
built up, um, you know, pensions, retirements, years put in, and then just I I
Yeah.
had someone tell me like I physically cannot bring myself to do this anymore. I
Yeah.
can't, and that's a lot because that was a lot. That's a lot of heavy stuff for someone because it goes against kind of that societal,
It does.
teaching and training really of, you work this job 30 plus years, then you retire, kind of you have this stability. And I remember like during that time too, I was talking with my bookkeeper and just, oh, how's everything going? How are you handling this stuff? And she said, I've never been busier
Mhm.
starting corporations for people and starting LLCs for people and businesses for people
Yeah.
because they were walking away from the stress, from the job, that
Yeah.
culture, and they were starting to do what they enjoyed, what they love, stuff like that. And
I
that
agree.
was really big, really
And I
big.
think there's a shift from people buying from big box corporations as well, and really going, hey, I want to support, this local, you know,
Mhm,
whether it's an artist or artisan, they
mhm.
wanted to support locally rather than larger corporations. That was a big shift too. I mean, as far
Yeah.
as what I personally recognized, and
Mhm.
that was a pretty huge shift. I think there was more of a focus on themselves, and that was the big impact. No,
Yes.
because everything
Yep.
is so external, there's always
Yeah.
work is preoccupying, TVs, the little screens that everybody
Mhm.
carries around in their pocket. We always have something to preoccupy our time. And I think at first it wasn't a big deal. And then over time, it's like, wow. I mean, like, how much TV can you watch? How
Mhm.
how many times can you jump on social media? You know,
Mhm.
kind of burn out. And then you're left with you. And when you're, you know, unable to go out into the big wide world, um, you can't escape yourself. So you kind of deal with what you have, and you're like, wow, so I think a lot of people were making some really fantastic decisions in their life about themselves and learning about themselves more. And
Mhm.
that's really where it all begins, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it is, I definitely saw an uptick in the supporting small and kind of, I would just call it, I would always just say, like, it's humanity coming back to root living, like rooted
Yeah.
mentality,
Yeah.
rooted living, and remembering that we are and have always been or always have had the ability to be self-sustainable.
Yeah.
We
I
forgot
agree.
that. We forgot that through convenience and instant gratification and ease. I feel like humanity forgot that, and we got a hard reminder
Yeah.
about that.
And people were
So,
out in nature more than ever because there
oh
was
yeah,
nothing
I
else to
know.
do. you know?
Yeah, it was, I'm not gonna lie, it was a little frustrating for those of us who normally did that stuff because then we would go and I'm like, why is there so many fucking people? Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's great. It's bittersweet because I was happy to see it.
Uh-huh.
But at the same time, I was like, well, I guess we're gonna find another trail or go over here because it was just so crowded. It
Yeah.
was so crowded. And it even got to the point like parts of the trailheads and things and nature areas were being closed off because there was just way too much.
Yeah.
And I was like, I remember telling my husband, like, I'm so happy to see this. This is what it means, right? But at the same time, I'm like, man, okay, you go enjoy over there. We're gonna go excursion over here because
Mhm.
it's just too
Well, it's
much.
all
But
about timing. If you do the harder trails, like at the
mhm,
beginning, if you did the harder trails, nobody was on them. And then as time progressed and people got better at hiking, then you switch
right.
and you do the easy
And do
trails.
see, that's what we should have did. That's what we
Yeah.
should have did. But
Yeah.
we didn't. We were just like, whatever. We're gonna go off-roading and go down this way. We'll just
Yeah.
switch it up. It's fine. But it was really that was, I think, one of my favorite things to see through the course of this mass awakening was people getting back outside and not being on their devices and breathing the air and being out in nature, so that was super cool. So
I think that,
let's
oh, I'm
uh-huh.
sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I think that the usual barriers that people face when there is this awakening process, I don't think it was as prevalent because there was such an isolation factor. You know what I
Mm,
mean?
mm-hmm,
I think that there was more of a curiosity to explore and an openness that I think normally is challenging for most people.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But again, kind of done everything. And it's like, well, I think fear is the number one thing. You've heard me say that before,
Mm-hmm,
that can um, definitely have a potential to uh, prohibit the awakening process.
yes.
It can be scary. It can be overwhelming. It can challenge your own beliefs. It can challenge your belief about yourself, the world. A lot of
Mm-hmm,
people will experience like panic or anxiety when they begin to confront those things.
mm-hmm,
I also believe that that was definitely more open, and there was like this wonderment and curiosity. Um,
mm-hmm.
and the second thing is lack of support.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There would, I mean, typically when there's a lack of support, going through an awakening can be pretty lonely. Nobody will be there or understand or make sense of what you're going through. It can make it more challenging. And I think because of this, there was a lot of people that were on social media, and there
Mm-hmm.
was like these small mini like little tribes everywhere of awakenings. Um,
Yep.
the resistance wasn't there that I would typically see with it. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we resist change even when it's for something we want. Uh, Clinging to like old habits, old beliefs that no longer serve us.
Mm-hmm.
That can typically prevent people from embracing that transformation, which I really, again, didn't see much of. Um, and I also think that there is this perceived or belief of, uh, I have no more guidance. So then there's this, I'm just sitting here, I don't know what to do, which is why we're talking about this today,
Mm-hmm.
But
Well, I think it's when you feel like that, it is questioning, who I have no more guidance. Who can I turn to?
yeah,
who can I trust to be vulnerable and open up about these things? Because generally, from my experience and what I witness with others, is the awakening. It's like the reverse Uno card for everything that you kind of understand in life. And you've set these things up with in your circle, you know, how they currently look, but your newly awakened perception could very well not match those that were in your circle. So now who do I talk to?
Yeah,
Who's going to understand what I'm going through and how I'm feeling?
exactly. Yeah, I
Yeah.
totally agree with that. It seems like, I don't know. I mean, if I my journey was much longer ago than yours. I'm like the crypt keeper over here.
Yeah, I probably would have been like, yeah, here's the towel. I'm done. Like this is way too much. It's taking too long. That instant gratification, like let's I
Oh
get the gist of
man.
it. Let's move on.
I think that it's an awesome time for anybody to be awake, because there's so much
Mm-hmm.
information, you know. I mean, I know that can be challenging too, because you're like, oh
Mm-hmm.
shit, what
It's
do I
sometimes
pick
it can feel
from?
too much.
Yeah. What do I pick from? There's 596 choices, you know. uh
Right.
but yeah, I think it's a really awesome time. And I think most people know the base stuff, like grounding and
Mm-hmm.
protection and um you know, maintaining a high vibration. I think that's so surface.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What would you think would be the next main thing that somebody should focus on?
Aside from that basics, I mean, as we're speaking like in practitioner wise or those awakening to, I feel like aside from the typical grounding protection stuff is understanding your energy, your aura, your
Yes.
chakras. How do
Yes.
you feel? And it's like I tell my clients and students too, how are you going to recognize the presence of anything else if you don't even know what you feel like? So how's like you going to know who's
Yeah,
who if you don't even know what you feel like, right? But everybody wants to
exactly.
jump to like step 10, you know, and to get to this part, but
Ah,
you got to get to know yourself first,
yeah,
you know.
exactly.
So I think after just the basics, you know, foundational basic stuff, yeah, I think you should spend time getting to know your aura, your energy. How do your chakras function? Which ones do you lean on more than others? Where do you tap into, you know?
Yeah.
And expand yourself out, pull yourself in, see how these things, how you interact, and even like your awareness in different situations or different places. How do
Right.
you energetically react in all of these?
Yeah. I think that's that's one of the reasons. I don't care if you've been a practitioner for 20 years or for 2 minutes. If you come to
Mm-hmm.
me and you're taking a course, that's like baseline. I don't care. I do not know where you achieved your foundational information.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So chakras are a must. It's an absolute must.
Mm-hmm.
And understanding the importance of how we are opening and working with each one of the chakras. And
Mm-hmm.
that's just like, you have to understand that week one, I'm
Yeah.
already saying, okay, let's look at your energy.
Yeah.
I already have exercises. Let's look at that energy. Let's see how that's
Mm-hmm.
working. How is your energy responding? You know, kind of like, what is your antenna? How high
Mm-hmm.
is it? Are you a receiver or a transceiver? You know,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
those are important. You're
Mm-hmm.
100% right on that. So important to know your energy.
Right. Yeah. And I feel like too, that's also a good opening and indication for you even to gauge like where your shadows at, the aspects of shadow, where your ego steps in, what's your higher self, like kind of to differentiate how all of those are operating as well within your auric field. Again, how are you going
Absolutely.
to be of service or even be able to determine what's what if you don't even know where you're starting from? You have no baseline in that sense. Like
Yeah.
anybody, grounding, no problem. Protection, no problem.
Yeah.
But how, and you can look up, you can Google 100 ways to ground yourself, 100 ways of protection examples.
Yeah.
Wear these stones, say this prayer, do this, set this intention, say it this way, but where is the part where you get to know thyself in that
Yeah.
aspect? Where is that?
And
Where
that's
is that?
something I'm like so anti over is these fixed um say it this way, do it this way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, what is your belief? I already know mine.
Mm-hmm.
What's yours? What speaks to you?
Yeah.
What is your deity? Whatever it may be, I don't care if it's who it is, if it's the Christian deity, if it's Zeus, if it's the
Mm-hmm.
tree, I don't give a shit. But do you know what that is? Does it reside with you? Does it
Mm-hmm.
feel right to you? It's not monkey see, monkey do,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. And I mean, it's not. And I could say, like, that is one of the main reasons I guide the way that I do now, because in the very beginning, this is way back even before you and I met, I did everything ass backwards. I fell down so many different rabbit holes because I was like, whoa, past life, what's that about?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
angel connection, what's that about? And I just went down so many different avenues. And I think it probably was maybe right before you and I actually met where I was like, okay, wait, I don't know what's what. I don't know how it's just it became too much and I got trapped in that. And one of my good friends would laugh, and when she watches this, she's gonna laugh again. She always does because she would do like intention stuff, right? And we'd share and talk about things and open up. And I would be like, what does that word say over there on your paper? I'm like, oh, that sounds great. I would like to try that. And, it was just an intention thing of like, like the abundance, typical
Yeah.
abundance kind of stuff. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh my God, like I could use some abundance. Like I
Yeah.
could do that. And I was so afraid of like fucking things up that I'd be like, okay, so she used what kind of candle on what day and how did this and what did you say? But at the end of all of that, in hindsight, I'm like, I never had the guidance for someone to say, wait a minute, get your basics down, your grounding stuff, those techniques down first,
Hmm.
and then start to get to know and understand where your energy is.
Yeah.
I would sit in I would look so stupid. I would sit in meditation and of course naturally everything starts happening, right? And I would
Hmm.
be like, okay, eyes are closed. I'm listening to this guided meditation. The minute I feel a shift, I'm like, what?
That is
every
priceless.
every time, it never fails. And then I would be like, oh fuck, what was that? Like something just entered the room, or somebody just stepped forward, or whatever. And I'm out. I'm already out because I
Yeah.
didn't understand my auric field and how that expanded, what that felt like. I didn't get to know that.
Yeah.
So, speaking from experience, everything I did completely ass backwards. So when I guide now, it is most definitely square one. We start diving into your energy, how that operates, how you function, where you lean into, where you have hesitation, where you shy away from,
Mm-hmm.
kind of starting to gauge all of that when you are awake and now you don't know what to do,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a fun time. It's a freaky time, but it's a fun time because you only get those like first experiences, during that time, like the first ahas and the first cools kind
Yeah.
of thing. And I feel like spirit gets so excited that they just start like throwing everything at you and spicing everything, it gets real spicy
I
everywhere.
I feel like when people I can only speak from my experience, what I have observed,
Mm-hmm.
but I including myself, it was, what we call the rabbit hole,
Mm-hmm.
falling down it over and over and over again, because there is this unspoken understanding that we have within ourselves. Holy shit, I have wasted so much time.
Yes.
It's time to play catch up. So it is
Yep.
this
Yep.
complete immersion to
Mm-hmm.
try to absorb as much information as we possibly can, because I
Mm-hmm.
believe there is this very intrinsic knowledge that we have within ourselves. Holy shit, we have been fucking the pooch all this time. you know?
Yeah.
So,
That is such a good point because that is very true. You feel like, what have I been doing with my whole life
yeah,
this whole time? And then what I find is funny with that? I remember like I would think, and even till this day, every single level or advancement that I go through, I think the same thing. How many lifetimes have I been through this, when you're just like,
yeah,
oh wow, I'm mind blown right now. This is crazy. And then I think, what a ding dong you are. Like, how many lifetimes have you been through this? Oh my God, this is news to you, on a soul
yeah.
level. But it is that need to hurry up and
It is.
consume and go and get
I
because
I will never forget. I paid $350 for this. This will be in my brain like on my deathbed. Okay.
you're gonna be like
I sat
hours
in
of
this
time.
freaking course that was hosted by blah, 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 I can't say,
Mm-hmm.
but um it sounds like Millie Smell. You do the math of what that
Mm-hmm.
is. And that was an enormous amount of money. And it was under the topic of
Mm-hmm.
synchronicity.
Okay.
And I sat through this, and you know what? I walked away from that whole thing. And I mean, like, it was very lengthy, very wordy.
Mm-hmm.
And you could have summed it up in like 2 sentences. I walked away going, oh, that's when the same shit happens repeatedly throughout the day, and it's just in different ways. See how easy that was? And like, girl, you didn't have to give me a quarter for that. And I was like, holy crap. Yeah. I mean, it was literally that's what it was. And I did that a lot. It was like, ooh, here's a topic. I don't know what
Mm-hmm.
this topic is. I have no idea what this is. Let's go figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of
Yeah.
it was like, well, that was kind of stupid of you. It's psychic you are. Boy, you were really off with that one. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, it was a real, like, just rabbit hole after rabbit hole after rabbit hole. Um, Excitement. There was such
Mm-hmm.
an excitement, and I hope I never lose it. I hope I never lose that.
Yeah.
Just every day going, okay, universe, what are you going to show me today? You know what I mean? Like, oh, what are you going to show me?
I think that's one of the coolest things about being awake and moving into your personal alignment, whatever it is, whatever details are in your contract, but it is that constant surprise like around the corner. And I feel like too with that, it's the conquering of the empowerment that comes with every single layer where you think, I mean, look back at where you were. I mean, even 10 years ago, you've been in this for a very long time, but even 10 years ago in comparison to now.
Mm-hmm.
And I would stretch to say you were very, very much in your empowerment even 10 years ago, but the depths of it that has transpired even up till now.
Oh, yeah.
Still, even after all of this time,
Oh my God, do you know how dumb I was? Do you know how many times in my life, like, okay, let's go visit age 28, where I literally was like, I went through like another really big shift.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, wait a minute, I thought I was done. You mean there's more?
Mm-hmm.
So stupid. You know what I mean? Like, just looking
Mm-hmm.
back, I'm like, wow, that is so atypical.
Well, the minute you're like,
yeah,
okay, I think we could hit cruise control and we could just coast off of this. Like,
and that's really what it was like.
and
It's
they're
like,
like,
okay, I
yeah,
see,
no,
I hear, I smell, I taste, I feel everything. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
how much more can you see? How much more can you feel? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, oh shit, you mean like, oh, like that? Okay. Okay. You know what I mean?
Spirit's
Like,
like, hold my beer.
yeah, essentially.
God's
And
like, oh, okay.
it happened over and over and over again, and it's deeper and more is the best way that I can describe it.
Mm-hmm.
Over and over and over again. So I'll probably be like 80 going, again, here we go,
Like, I guess, but we're so used to it by now that we're just like, all right, I mean,
Yeah.
fucking buckle up, whatever.
Yeah.
Make this snappy because
Yeah. I'm like,
I'm
all
not
right,
resisting anymore.
nope. I'll just sprawl out like a starfish until you're done
Yeah.
for the next.
And
Let
I'm
me
just gonna
know
tell
when
my
it's done.
family, just
Let me know.
I'm unreachable for the next 5 to 7 business days. Thanks.
Yeah. That's
But
essentially what it is.
yeah, that really is. And I feel like and I tell people this all the time when we talk about this subject. You're going to reach those levels like when we talked about in the past episode of stagnation, of feeling like everything's disconnected when you're shifting into new.
Mm-hmm.
It's always going to happen. That's personal opinion. I would safely bet money on it's always going to happen so long as you are in existence in this life. You're going to continuously, hopefully, keep going forward and keep shifting.
Yeah.
So what would your take be on newly awakened? I have uh I have 10 Pinterest boards of grounding, shielding, all of this kind of stuff, but then what do I do after that? What do I do with all this information?
So I think if they're grounding, they know the chakra system, they understand protection methods, they understand who their deity is. Then my next inclination is to say, what is your meditative practices? So if they have a solid meditative practice, and there's so many different kinds. So I strongly would encourage anybody, first and foremost, you don't have to wrap yourself up like a pretzel. It's not a thing. It is not required, I assure you. So you can do many different styles of meditation. You can do chakra meditation, active meditation, quiet meditation, guided meditation, transcendental meditation. We could go on for a long time, but find one that really works for you and make it a part of your spiritual practice, because that is going to help you greatly, greatly. Just in being centered in your practice.
Right. Yeah.
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 That would be my next logical kind of thing. It's like, okay, let's get this on board, because to me that's like the next. I think people mess around with meditation at first, like, let's try this, know. And I think when there is some elevation in their gifts, then they stop and they're like, well, I can't really do it. I'm not really into it, or it's not doing what it used to do. You got to stick with it. I promise you'll be fine.
Yeah. Right.
Switch it up. If you're always doing guided, okay, switch it up, do active. If you're always doing active, switch it up, do chakra, do quiet, switch it up,
Yeah, that's a really good point. That is a really good point of switching up your meditation and trying something different.
Oh yeah. I did the same thing for years. Crypt keeper. If I did that for all these years, it would be boring as hell. The same thing over and over again. No. You gotta switch it up. When it starts to kind of be like you're just going through the motion, that's important, because if you're just going through the motion and you're not actually getting the connection, that's a huge sign. Stop, take a breath, regroup, change it up. That's it. It'll just take one thing to change it up, and that could shift the entire energy. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just like, when you come in, if you can, I'm sure a lot of people can relate, when you go into your house and you're just like, ugh, I just need to move things around and kind of like shift the energy some, kind of refreshen the space.
Yeah.
It's like the same thing. I find with quite a bit of people in my experience is, and myself included too, of thinking that you have to, like you said, be in a pretzel. You have to do this kind of meditation.
Yeah, a lot of people believe that.
A lot of people are like, I can't even get my brain to pause for 60 seconds. How am I going to meditate? And I can't sit like this. And I'm like, yeah, you will hardly ever catch me sitting. I got big boobs, and it's a lot to carry. Okay. I need support. Yeah. I need support in this area.
I know.
So, whatever you need to do to set yourself up, and set yourself up. If you find that you can focus more laying flat on your back, yoga, shavasana, do that.
Yeah.
If you need to lean against a wall or just go in your, a chair or whatever, do that.
Yeah.
And when you are, and I feel like too, a lot of people try to quiet the mental mind.
I know.
Stop the mental mind. And I'm like, bruh, it comes with the body. It ain't going nowhere. So long as you're in this suit, it's going to be there.
Yeah. And I think, God, whoever that may be for who's watching, whoever that may be for you, has created us to be very intellectual beings. And we like to have thoughts. That's part of it. That is part of it. And me personally, there's no way on God's green earth you could have got me to sit still with a quiet meditation when I started out. Are you kidding me? My brain was like, there was no way. It never happened. It was not a thing.
Yeah.
And so And again, I had a fantastic mentor who was very patient with me and dispelled a lot of the myths that I personally didn't find out for a while. But there's a lot of myths, you must do this for hours every day. And you must, oh my God, if somebody would have told me that I had to do quiet meditation 4 hours a day, and, I was working and in college and had a family, and are you out of your rabbit ass mind?
Right.
I don't have the time or the mental space to dedicate to that. That's what I would have said,
Yeah.
So,
I
yeah.
would have said the same thing, because it's like, my attention span is not that long. And so when you try to sit and quiet and do all this, it was, and I would remind people, what you see now is not anything close to where I was in the beginning.
Oh no.
No.
Oh.
Now, like clockwork, no problem. Yeah, but that's years in the making to get to this point.
Yeah.
In the beginning, I started out with guided meditations in the beginning because YouTube was my best friend, right? So YouTubing everything. And it was, I would sit there before knowing about, the power of breath work and mindfulness and breath, and kind of giving your monkey mind that task to focus on or whatever. It would be like, you're walking in the forest, and you see, there was one meditation. It was like, you're walking in the forest and you look down and there's all these crystals that are just poking out of the ground, and the chick is saying like, they're red, but then I'm like, but I don't really like red, so I'm going to make them like purple. Well, do I really want purple?
And then your brain just went.
And my brain's just,
yeah.
We're no longer listening to the meditation because we're changing the scenery to everything that we like, and we're shifting things. And that, I mean, I dove into doing all of that stuff, and I thought, oh, guided meditation, like I can follow along easy. But yeah, my monkey mind, my ego mind was still, oh, well, let's do this one, let's do that one, let's do this one, let's do that one. And in hindsight, again, after the fact, then I learned, when I started really focusing on learning my energy and understanding my own energy, then it like naturally progressed into allowing myself to relax into breath work and to give the monkey mind a task to do with breathing, and allowing those thoughts to, those intrusive thoughts to just come in, pass, come and pass. It took work. It was practice.
Absolutely.
I couldn't fucking sit for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Because I would be like, surely this has been 20 minutes already. And I would look at the clock and I'd be like, gosh dang it, it's only been 1 minute and 13 seconds.
Yeah.
Fuck.
So
this taking forever.
When I started, mine was a lot of chanting, a lot of drumming, obviously, as a shaman. There was a lot for me to focus my intention on, other than quiet. So I was fortunate in breath work in and of itself. Yeah. But quiet. Yeah. I don't think I truly, in all honesty, I don't think I mastered quiet meditation effectively, what I would call mastered.
Right.
Without that drifting and drifting and drifting, probably for a couple of years, if I'm being honest. I mean, it was quite a chunk of time.
Yeah, it took time. It took time. I thought, I really, truly, in the beginning, I thought I just wouldn't be that person. There wouldn't come a day where I could just sit alone by myself with nothing of assistance and then just drop into a meditation, or, hell, even like trance, going into a trance state or anything like that. In the very beginning, I thought, yeah, that's probably, guided meditation is probably going to be my thing because
Yeah.
it just is helpful. But again, a little bit at a time, building up, building up, building up. So I feel like, those who are awake and are kind of in that position of where do I begin? Where do I start? What do I do? And getting into meditation, you got to give yourself some grace
Oh,
because
absolutely.
it's gonna be a minute
Yeah.
before you get things down.
And I know we talked about the chakras, but I feel compelled to go back and say, if you are working on the chakras, because I don't know about your students, my students in particular, they always want to work here.
Hmm.
They're like, here, I'm going to work on this.
Yeah,
So,
everybody wants to fly high all the
yeah.
time.
And it's like, there's a reason why we start at the root and work its way up.
Hmm.
Because you are not going to have an effective connection if you do not
Hmm.
work from the root up. I promise you, you'll get spotty information. It's going to be garbage. It's not going to be effective. One day,
Hmm.
1 second, you'll be like, oh my God, I just got that. And then like 10 minutes later, you're going to say something. You're going to be like, oh, I was totally fucking off. Yeah. You have to,
Hmm.
that's a clear connection. So I just felt compelled to say that.
Yeah, no, but that you bring up a really good point uh to make with that when going into the chakras and the energy.
Yeah.
And that is a common thing I hear more often than I'd like to say happens is everybody wants to fly high.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be in the sky all the time. And I noticed that there's this hesitation, this fear, or whatever you want. Like
Mhm.
fear is what I take it as of losing that connection if you focus on the lower chakras.
Mhm.
And I'm like, oh, nay, nay, that's actually going to strengthen up here because you're building on solid ground.
Yeah. I,
When you want to fly high, you're just building on a deck of cards and that's going to tip over
yeah,
one little, fart in the wind and there you go.
absolutely. Um, in my book that is totally free, if anybody wants to snag it off of Amazon, um, which is a guide for the newly awakened. And I'm telling you, I wrote like a whole chapter revolving around that because there is fear. Once you
Hmm.
connect and you're like, oh my God, I got it. There's a fear of if I am grounded, somehow they perceive their vibration drops maybe or
Right.
something, or they're
Yeah.
not going to be able to get that connection again. There's a lot of
Hmm.
misconceptions revolving around that. The reality is, like, here's a person, here's the root,
Hmm.
here's the crown. The chakras cone out and away. And if it's at your root, it's coning away and it's meeting in
Hmm.
the middle of your body. And then the crown that's coning, the bottom of that cone is meeting right where that root is connecting. And that's how
Hmm.
you get the energy going up and down. So if you
Hmm.
don't have working from the root all the way up, you're not going to have a clear connection. And that's why in the Tibetan, belief system, which is where we get our chakra system,
Hmm.
why they have the petals in the order that they do. That's
Hmm.
why they're
Yeah.
associated that way, because the lotus is slowly opening to that 1,000 petals at the crown.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, it starts here and it keeps building and building and building.
Yeah.
And the one point that I make with that is when you have that anchor, when you're working from the root and you're building up on that solid foundation, it's a fluid motion that's consistently happening.
Yeah.
And your aura, your energy, your vibration is not going to go to shit so fast.
Yeah.
You have that, because if you just want to fly high all the time, you're going to run yourself down very quickly. Very
You know how
quickly.
many people that I've met that were like doing readings and they'd have their feet on selenite while they're doing readings? And I'm like, you are so wrong. That is not going to help you. That is not going to help you. You know what I mean? Like that, there is this perception of this instant gratification, and it doesn't quite work that way. There is a graduation of energy that has to occur. For some people, that can be very expeditious, and other people, it can take time. There's no rhyme, there's no reason. It's when you're ready, and when you are ready, that's the perfect time for you.
Yep. I think that's one of the hardest things for people to accept too, is when you are ready.
Absolutely.
It's going to unfold when you are ready.
Yeah.
And then like, but I'm ready now.
Yeah.
Like, oh, but are you really?
Yeah.
Are you?
Yeah.
Because if you're like, I'm ready now, I'm ready now, I'm ready now, that's pretty sure that you're not. Because if you are, why are you so insistent on, hyper speeding forward?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like the journey of life, right? Everyone, or this, your path and your alignment, you want to get to the finish line,
Yeah.
but everything is within the journey. It's getting there that matters. The finish line is always going to be there. It doesn't matter, but what you obtain through the process, that's the beauty of existence. That's how it, goes. Same thing here. There's, you're so afraid of grounding, but there's so much strength and confidence in a solid root.
Yeah.
In a solid sacral.
Yeah.
In a solid solar, And then when you get up here and you cross that bridge, it makes all of this just so much sweeter.
It does. What I think most people forget in this process is we are spiritual beings that is having a human experience. And in order to have that human experience, you have to identify with the human body, And I think that's why people may have some struggles, because look at how many people are challenged with their own physicality, whether it's how I look or how my health is and how I feel in my body, whatever it may be. A lot of people want to escape that. And what this practice is asking you to do is, no, pay attention to it, embrace it. You know? And that can be challenging. That can be very challenging for some folks.
Oh, yes. Look at, oh gosh, cookie cutter. Everything is like cookie cutter nowadays. It drives me fucking nuts. Cookie cutter.
Yeah.
And where's the uniqueness in each individual? Where's the acceptance of what you have, how you are? The mind, I just was having a talk with somebody actually about this. I don't remember when, but the mind, body, and soul connection. It's not compartmentalized.
Right.
It's all woven together to build one solid function of you, the essence of you, right? Your soul, your physical body, your mind, even your ego.
Yeah.
All woven in together to make you are one beautiful quilt, all stitched in together. And every piece of it, every single piece of it deserves your attention, your energy, your honor, your respect, your gratitude, all of the stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh my God. I bitched at my husband, I don't know when, long ago.
Was it long ago? Was it though?
Yeah, it was probably earlier. He's like,
was it really though?
I love you, honey. And I'm like, I tolerate you. He's cool. But the topic we were talking about was that with the body. And I had told him, when have you ever sat and just gave appreciation to your body.
Yeah.
When did you ever do that? Of course he's a guy, so he's like never, but I said, think about it. You are X amount of years old, you do all this crazy shit,
Uh-huh.
and your body is working its ass off to carry you through
Yeah.
all of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
When did you sit? And I had him do this, just sit for a second and just put your hands on your chest
Mm-hmm.
and just say thank you.
Mm-hmm.
See how that feels.
Mm-hmm.
Because our bodies work our ass off.
Oh yeah.
But instead we're in the mirror like, I don't like this about myself. I have this going on. I have this going on,
Yeah.
or I got to smash the ego. I got to get rid of the ego because ego bad. Like,
Yeah.
no, no. We are all
And I
just
think
crooks
that's
walking
part
around.
of that self-love process that people miss.
Mm-hmm.
I think that
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to like nurturing self, the what pops into maybe not everybody, but I think there is a majority of people that say, okay, I'm going to get a pedicure, and that's self-love.
Oh gosh.
You know,
Yeah.
you know what I
I'm going to
mean?
treat myself.
Yeah.
Like,
And
mm,
when I do my classes on it, one of the first thing that I do is, okay, how are we going to incorporate self-love
mm-hmm.
into your morning and nighttime routine? And they're looking at me like, what? It's like, oh yeah. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna incorporate this every morning and every night. And it can be in the most smallest ways, put a rose quartz in your cold cream, if
Mm-hmm.
people actually use that
I'm going to get a whole
anymore.
gallon and throw it in there.
Like, take a rose
Yeah.
quartz and put it in. So every time you
Yeah.
see that, it will remind you, you know,
Yeah.
let that remind you, oh, you know what? I do love myself. I do. Go through each part of your body, rub your arms. Thank you for all that you have done today for carrying the weight of my children. Rubbing
Mm-hmm.
your legs. Thank you for carrying the weight of my body today.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm being completely, thank you for giving me the face to come forward to face every single day. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think there's so many unique ways of doing that. And I do believe that that is an important part of the awakening process that a lot of people skip. Because if you do
Yeah.
not love yourself, how in the hell can you love anything else? I mean, truly,
Mm-hmm.
like effectively,
Yeah.
you know what I
Right. No, I mean, yeah, that's absolutely right. And it is, I tell people the same thing too, kind of with your, especially women, like with your night routine.
mean? Yeah.
So when you're putting on like your serums and you're doing all of your stuff, talk to your body, talk to your skin,
Yeah.
talk to, especially with, the huge anti-aging market that
Sure.
exists.
Yeah.
Talk to your skin in the way you would hype up your best friend,
Yeah.
you know, and your body. Connect with all of that. That's how you really start incorporating that self love
Yeah.
and you start valuing yourself.
Absolutely.
Notice, and I notice like even with some people who are so critical, right? They're just really, really critical. So I'd say, okay, well, here's a challenge for you. Every time that you look in the mirror and you think one negative, you have one criticism about yourself,
Hmm.
say something positive about yourself. So
Hmm.
for every one thing that you say bad, say something that you do love. Point something out that you do appreciate, that you do love.
Yeah.
It's like I've had somebody say that once. I'm just so stuck in this mindset, but you choose to. You can move out of it.
Sure.
You
Yeah.
absolutely can move out of it. It's your choice. But how are you going to move out of it? So if you say
Right.
one negative, what's one positive? You
Yeah.
have to make yourself start thinking, you're shifting your thought process and your mindset.
Yeah.
It's going to take some work. And yeah, I feel like it is, you truly love yourself and truly start finding that value. And that's by showing that self-love and showing yourself the love to even go through and heal those wounds and move through the shadow. Getting pedicures and manicures all day long is not going to do anything. Your nails are going to look nice, your feet's going to look nice.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you're still going to be sitting with the same stuff.
And I want to be clear, I'm not saying you will not have an opening of your abilities. You will absolutely open your abilities without doing any self-love. I promise you can.
Oh, yeah.
But I also promise that it will come a point in your development where you will stop, because spirit is waiting for you to catch up. And that catching up is the point where you have to really start self-reflecting. And that's like a whole bunch of different factors come into play. If you cannot accept yourself, how can you accept others?
Right.
If you find flaws within yourself and you're doing mediumship work, how in the hell are you going to accept a reading from somebody else that may have those same perceived flaws?
Yeah.
Right. So there's going to be a point where it's going to be stunted. It really will. It's unfortunate, but yeah, I'll bet every buck in my bank account that will happen.
Well, that's
just
another
part of the
thing
process.
That doesn't get talked about. That's another thing that doesn't, it's not out there in the open.
Yeah.
The same way as like expand your third eye, work on like here, open your crown, this and that and the other thing. You're only going to be as impactful as the work that you do within.
Yeah.
You're only going to be as impactful of service as the work that you do within. Yeah. So you can't run from yourself the entirety of your life, because it's going to affect everything that you do. And if you're trying to expand your abilities or move in your alignment and all of that stuff, but you're not addressing yourself.
Yeah.
At some point, like you said, it's going to stop. Things are going to pause. The pause button is going to happen because you need to address you.
And, I'll be completely transparent. For me, I thought, just like I was saying at 28, that was a big one. It's because I worked through all my shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And up until that point, I was like, oh, I don't like this about me. I'm weird. I don't know people that are like me. I mean, besides, I think maybe at that time, maybe 8 people, and when it came to like social circles, especially, in the culture that I was in, I was a weirdo. And I was always like hiding everything and trying to be what people thought was, or what I thought people wanted me to be,
Right.
So yeah, every time I looked in the mirror, I'm like, oh, this isn't right. That isn't right. This isn't right. I don't like this aspect of me. I don't like that aspect of me. And I'm telling you, I promise you, there will be an unfolding of your abilities that you could never fucking fathom. And I mean, I could see, I could hear, I could smell, I could taste, I had it all. And I was like, oh yeah, this is what it is. No, my friend, it will get deeper. It will get deeper. It will be more, it will be so much more. And I think I can say with all honesty, my mediumship, it didn't like unfold. The fucking red carpet rolled out for me. You know what I mean? That sounded really dramatic, but it really, at that point, it really, really did. And I think that's why. Like, how can I accept somebody coming to me that, has all these things intimate things they want to share to their loved one? If I'm like, oh, I don't think I'm good enough, they're not going to come to me.
Right.
They're not going to come to me, Yeah.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, I think it too, it's like even touching on our episode that we just that just aired last week, even with the earthbound stuff. I feel like going through one of the things that I think is pretty awesome in shifting your perspective too when you do the work on yourself is we all carry judgment, right? Human nature. We
Mhm.
judgment of all kind, all sorts. Even when we're all just critical of ourselves and judgmental of
Yeah.
ourselves. And with what you're saying, even with like mediumship, it is like the same of, when that last conversation we had about earthbounds and crossing and being of service in that area, how are you going to be able to do that if you're not doing the work on yourself and you're still quick to judge for everything because
Mhm.
you're hypercritical of self. So spirit's going to see right through that shit.
Sure.
Obviously different from a cross soul from an earthbound soul,
Yeah,
but it's still that self perception and that view. And
absolutely.
again, you are only as impactful and
Yeah,
of service as what you do for yourself.
absolutely.
So think of how powerful, empowering you could be if you allow that to unfold and allow that to happen.
Absolutely. Judgments. Judgments is such a big one. And anybody who says, I don't judge, you're full of shit. You judge every single time a plate of food is put in front of you, right? Still a
Mm-hmm.
judgment.
Still a judgment. Yeah.
It's still a
Yeah.
judgment. Before you make a right on that road and you're looking at that traffic, you are judging it. We're critical thinkers. I hope that we make
Right.
judgment,
Right.
but
Right.
it's changing your perception of the judgment, looking at it from a third party perspective instead of
Mm-hmm.
immersed within the
Right.
subject makes
Yeah.
a profound impact on how you view things and how spirit will view you and who wants to
Mm-hmm.
interact with you spiritually, you know?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. Yeah. Because when you're not in that outsider's perspective, that bird's eye view,
absolutely.
you're tying yourself emotionally to that judgment. When you're in the third party perspective, the bird's eye view, there's no attachment to that. It's just like like a fart in the wind,
It
that
is.
just comes and goes. But if you're not, again, and by doing the work on self, if you're not in that space, you're emotionally attaching to that judgment.
I
And
agree.
that keeps your perception just at, a smaller level than what you could possibly go to
I
if
agree.
you let yourself shift, you
Yeah,
know?
absolutely.
Yeah. So
And we could
it's a
probably
beautiful.
do like a whole nother episode just
Hmm.
on us because I think it's so expansive and we've only like brushed just the very surface of it. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah. I think this is actually a really good one to do a two-part um
I agree.
episode on because this is, you know, you're awake now what? Well, here's the baseline
Yeah.
for how to handle that, how to navigate that. It's
Hmm.
going to take you a little bit of time to get through that and work through that
Hmm.
and feel out what's good for you, how it sits with you and get to know yourself, especially if you've spent so many years running from yourself,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
like that is kind of similar to when in healing, when you see, or I'm sure we've all had clients from a time or two that come in and they want just fix me, just take it away. And I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
um, you didn't, uh, you have been sitting with this trauma for so long. It
Yeah.
has infiltrated your mentality, your view of life, your how you handle life,
Hmm.
how you think about life, all of these things. It's just not going to poof be gone because you have the aftermath of the ripple effect of what that trauma has caused.
Yeah.
That's the work that
Yeah.
comes in of shifting that, right? um Same thing with when you're awake and now what, well, you have to give yourself that time to move through and to feel yourself, sit with your energy, practice those self-love techniques those, um, giving yourself that grace and that honor. I feel like it is that honor to address your shadow in that way
Mhm.
because you deserve it. Like
Yeah.
fucking A, man. Isn't it? I don't like tell people like, isn't it exhausting carrying that shit around? Isn't it exhausting being so critical of yourself? Like that's a lot of energy you're expending out when you could be applying
Yeah.
that in
Yeah.
other ways.
I
You know?
agree. I have seen people that have, time and time again went through, their personal shadow work, and they're so different once they have, not that we don't, not that we ever stop, but once they
Mm-hmm.
get through the crux of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they have coping strategies and they understand those darker aspects or perceived darker aspects,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
just come out on the other side really embracing the warrior energy, and like not just knowing thy value but adding fucking tax to it, you know what I mean? Like that's what
Yes.
I love watching the transition, you know what I mean, to
Mm-hmm.
really stepping into the personal power. And that's so important in our work. I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
have to have your power, man. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yes.
Yeah.
Because if not, you're gonna get ran the fuck over. It is.
With a
It,
sema back and forth, back
I'm
and forth.
gonna go. Bitch, you need your power, okay? But I think this is a great topic, and this is something that, again, like these aspects that we're talking about is not what you typically find when you're talking about alignment and moving through and what do you do now, and all of these new awarenesses are coming up and you're questioning everything and your gifts are exploding and things are happening. So where do you go from there? I really feel like, don't be surprised if you see part two of this because we can still get into more,
Yeah,
building on this topic, building on these steps that we've shared
sure.
tonight. Um, so, any final thoughts on?
Um, I do have some. There's actually a few books. If it, I know
Mm-hmm.
I'm the book nerd. I know I am, but there's a few books that I would love to recommend to people if they're just starting
Yes.
out, because I think there's so many. And by all means, please explore whatever you want to explore. This,
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
just going to offer a few that I feel
Mm-hmm.
may be beneficial for certain individuals. So, also, I am a nerd, so keep that in mind. Uh, there is a book called The Power of Now. It's by Eckhart Tolle. It's a
Mm-hmm.
classic
I
for
love
a
that. Yeah.
reason. It will teach you how to live in the present moment, to find inner peace, and actually understand your personal happiness. I
Mm-hmm.
really recommend that. The second one is The Alchemist, and that's by Paulo. Uh, and that novel tells the story of a shepherd boy on a journey to find his personal legend. It's beautiful. It's an inspiring tale about finding your dreams and
That is a great book.
finding
Yeah.
your purpose. Um, and the Celestine Prophecy, which is
Mm-hmm.
by James Redfield, I'm pretty sure. Um, that book is a spiritual adventure story that explores the idea of synchronicity and the interconnectivity of everything. So definitely recommend that. The fourth one is The Seed of the Soul, and that is by Gary Zukav. And this book explores the idea that we are all spiritual beings having a human experience.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely offers insight into how we can live more fulfilling and meaningful lives. Um, and also, and this one is very controversial. I'm going to say. And I will also say, this can be challenging for a lot of people, but it is a Course in Miracles by Helen Schuckman. And it is a very extensive, comprehensive guide that will teach you how to achieve inner peace and happiness through forgiveness and love. With that said, I also feel that it has a religious bent to it. So I'm just going to leave it at that. I think that you can read it and take what you want and leave what you don't. I'm a big believer in that. I think there's some wonderful jewels in there. And again, if you want something for free, go to Amazon. I have a book. It's called Life with Spirit, a guide for the newly awakened. And essentially, I'm just walking you through the beginning steps and some, I think, I don't know how many exercises are in it, but there's, psychic exercises, things that you can do. So yeah, that's my little spiel. It's been out for a long ass time. So don't judge me by it.
Yes. I think what we'll do is we'll put the list of your recommendations in the description of on YouTube and then on Spotify.
Oh, that's cool.
That's and then idea. a link to your download. I believe we can do that. And the thing, so they can just click on it and go right to it.
I feel pretty confident, like everybody probably has Amazon Prime at this point.
Oh, yeah.
So if you got Amazon Prime, it's like free. Anybody who doesn't have Amazon Prime and they want this, just put your name or email or whatever, get in contact with us, and I'll make sure I send you a copy. Because I don't want that to be a reason why you can't get it,
Right. And that's super helpful information when you're looking at how to navigate being awakened and how do you move through it now, and what are the next steps for you to do, because there's so many people right now in this time frame that are being blown open, like as you're awakening, and it can be very overwhelming and just, a little bit scary too at the same time. So I think that's great. All right, so I think we'll wrap this up, and thank you all for watching, listening, all the things. Make sure you, what is it called? Comment, like, share, subscribe, all of the stuff. Send it out to friends or whoever that who are going through some stuff, or going through their awakening, or recognizing that they have abilities and not sure what they're supposed to do with it. If you found this helpful, we love the feedback. We love to hear what you would like to hear us talk about. And don't be surprised if this turns into like a part 2 kind of thing.
So until next time, thank you.
All right. Bye.